healthy hormones. And we're going to be discussing food and mood and how our food affects our emotions. And we have a panel of 4 amazing women who have decades of education and experience in health and wellness, holistic nutrition, and fitness. And so I'm sure they're going to be able to impart some amazing information for all of you. My health journey started about 10 years ago, following my depart from the corporate world. I spent many years soothing my soul, soothing myself with food, which definitely had an effect on my own health. I put on an enormous amount of weight, and I was living in a very toxic environment. I had a toxic relationship with my boss. And so when you are living in toxicity, you end up feeding yourself with a lot of toxic food, which then affects your mood, affects your attitude, and it's just this vicious cycle that goes around and around. I fell upon an amazing system that we will impart to you at the end of this call that totally changed my life. I started to lose weight, but I think most importantly, I started to manage my stress, my anxiety, because I was giving my body or nourishing my body with great nutrition. And truly what you eat is who you are. And so I think with what you're going to hear today and how the different foods that we eat affect us, affect everything in your body, I think you'll learn a lot through this. So I'm going to pass this over to Jen because she's going to talk about the exercise piece, but I actually had a bit of a story from today. I did what we call in our nutritional system cleansing. I did that yesterday and had originally planned to do a double cleanse day. And for whatever reason, I've been doing this for 6 years and never have had any trouble to get through a full cleanse day or even a double cleanse day. I've never not done them. And yesterday during my cleanse day, I had a really difficult time. I can tell you that at least 3 or 4 times I just was going to say, forget this, I'm just going to eat. I didn't. I pushed through it. Was feeling extremely tired yesterday, was really feeling out of sorts. I'm not sure why. I don't know if something was going on in the universe yesterday, Laurie, maybe you can speak to that, but I just really had a difficult time. Anyway, I woke up this morning and decided I was not going to do the double. I was not going to do 2 cleanse days in a row. I'll hold that for next week. But I also did not feel like working out. Typically every morning I work out. And I sat there fighting internally with myself. Am I going to do this? No, I'm not going to do this. I don't feel like this today. Well, I pushed myself and I did my workout. I didn't do an intense one like I normally do, but I did do a good workout, went for a good walk for my cardio. And I can tell you, I feel like a completely different person since doing that. My mood has changed. I feel energized. I have a much more positive mindset. And so I think, the fact that Jen is going to be speaking to this was a good story to share with you to kind of lead into what she's going to explain to all of us. So Jen, I turn it over to you.
Thanks, Cheryl. And yes, you're a perfect example of exactly what I'm going to talk about. So, I mean, I would see it on a weekly basis. So in teaching, again, my name is Jen Thomas. I'm a certified personal trainer, and I've had my own personal training and boot camp business for over 15 years now. And it speaks directly to what you talk about, Cheryl. In my classes, I have them at 7 o'clock at night, and I'd have some of the ladies walking in. It's like, oh, I didn't want to come, and I was tired. And by the end of it, they're glowing. It's like, I'm so glad I came. So there's an absolute connection between the two, and there's all those happy endorphins that flood your system when you exercise, which is a really, really great thing. And the other thing that I wanted to talk about is the connection between exercise, mood, but also the hormonal things that happen as you're exercising. Because, I mean, I don't know about you ladies, but as I've gotten older, the exercise that I used to do isn't quite cutting it for the person I am today. And I think that's part of it, is you always have to sort of keep changing things up because the body sort of adapts. So if all you do is run long distance, you're not going to see the changes that you want, and your body will adapt. And as you get older, there's certain hormonal things that happen as we get older that kind of messes with that. So one of the things I wanted to talk about is our estrogen. So as women, we all have it, but unfortunately, as we get older, it tends to almost get what's called an estrogen dominance, because things in our atmosphere, things that that are in our food, we tend to increase the estrogen, and it's very, very hard on the body, and it can actually lead to estrogen dominant types of cancers, breast cancers, things like that. And the one thing that exercise does beautifully is it helps to reduce that estrogen load. So that's the one I wanted to talk about. Secondly is testosterone. So we always think of testosterone as being the male hormone, but we all have it, and it's really important for muscle growth and thank you. Oh, I was going to prompt you, but you're already there. So thanks, Joy.
I'm there.
Muscle growth and also muscle repair, which is really important right after you've worked out, because as you're working out, it's really good for you, but you are creating little micro tears in the muscle. Eventually that's what causes the growth, but you need testosterone helps to repair those. So that's a really good thing. And I'll explain this chart as we go, because I wanted to go quickly over cortisol. Now, cortisol we think of as the stress hormone, and it absolutely is. And unfortunately, with the way we live our life, well, particularly right now, anxiety is up, stress is up, in all forms, oxidative stress, physical stress, mental stress particularly. And those cortisol levels tend to stay far too high. But the connection I wanted to make right now is the exercise connection. So especially as we get older as women, those long, moderate intensity workouts that might have been really good when we were in our 20s, they don't really serve us when we're in our 40s, 50s, and 60s, because as you can see, what happens is the longer that you work out, the more that cortisol rises. And that's not a good thing. And there's our blue line, which is our testosterone. And in fact, it decreases. So it's like a perfect storm for muscle wasting. So, and the more lean muscle you have, the more calories you burn at rest. So that's not something you want to see happen. And cortisol, same thing. It messes with your sleep patterns. We talked last week about inverted cortisol. So you can listen to the recording about that. But that's why it's just so important that, those high intensity, shorter interval workouts are really, really great, particularly for our age group. Using like some heavier weights, because again, the more muscle that we can build, the more calories we're going to burn at rest. So that's another piece. And the other one that you can get rid of our graphic there. And the last one I wanted to talk about is human growth hormone, which I think people have heard about it. We produce a lot of it as we sleep, but it helps it regulates fat metabolism. And a really great way to really kick up that HGH, or human growth hormone, is after a day of intermittent fasting, and you exercise right after that, like with some HIIT training or some weight training, and it spikes your human growth hormone, which helps metabolize that fat. So like I said, it changes and it evolves in terms of what we're trying to do. But as you get older, things have to change. How we exercise really has to change. But the mood and exercise connection is undeniable. I mean, all you have to do is walk outside, go for a walk, and it's amazing what it does for your mood. Or for me right now, I'm so excited because we're actually back on the golf course, which is for me so very socially distanced. But I mean, whatever gives you joy. If you're still a long distance runner, that's great. Do that, but switch it up. Make some modifications and changes so that you're not doing the same thing, because the body will adapt. It's like our food choices, which we'll get into as well. Your body adapts to certain, you look at someone from the East Coast, they've been eating seafood all their life, and all of a sudden they develop a bit of an intolerance to it. So there's ways you can tweak that, and we'll certainly be covering that today. But right now I wanted to throw it over to Lori, because she's going to talk about the neural and brain connection between food and mood. So Lori, take it away.
Thank you so much for that, Jen. And I love that information because there is such a definite connection. And my name is Lori Clark, and I have been a lifetime looking and fascinated with human physiology, human anatomy, human biology, and what makes the mind, body, soul connection work. And through all of that, there's all kinds of, certifications and studies, but I think the personal relationship I have with the brain is because of my own experience with severe concussions that I've had, and also with my kids who have had some very debilitating concussion experiences. And when you have something come close to home for you, you start to really pay more attention. And sadly, our body, which is our forever home, it's the only one we get, because I think, anyway, Lori says, because we're not taught to revere and respect our bodies, mind, body, soul, in school from a very young age, we tend to forget about it until it doesn't work for us the way we want it to. And our brains are one of those areas where we really have to be conscious about nourishing the brain as a specific entity within you, because your brain has so much that we don't even know about yet. But what we do know is that your brain runs on tracks. You have these neural synaptic connections in your brain. So think of a roadway. If there is a roadway, or you're on your bike on a pathway and there's a rut, you will tend to gravitate towards the rut that's more well-worn than anything else. It's habitual. It's just the way it is. And when we have to change our patterns, which is pattern interrupting, to develop a new habit or a new pattern. So Jen was talking about with exercise, even if you have fantastic exercise habits, you're still going to have to interrupt your habitual pattern and get uncomfortable and do something new regularly in order to switch it up, to keep the body always on point, always surprised, so that you're able to keep your body at its healthiest. And Cheryl was talking about, having to change up the way your food intake goes. So when you look at this image here of the brain, you're going to see all of those kinds of foods are healthy brain foods, and you're going to want to change it up. So eating only kale all the time as your main source of neural nourishment is going to suck after a month. It works for a month and then you have to change it up. So you're going to be wanting to look at a combination of healthy fats and oils and plant-based foods. You will notice that inside this image, and I think there's another one, Joanne, of two sides of brain busters and brain boosters that I gave you, that the next slide that we can put up, where food that comes in a box, food that, this one we'll talk about first. So these are just some healthy choices. Now, our society has conditioned us to not eat cashew nuts because they're too high in fat. And yet, they're such a fantastic food source for the brain. Chocolate, such a fantastic, like pure dark chocolate, fantastic food source for the brain. So you need to disconnect calorie counting, which the diet industry messed our brains up with, and forget about that and start looking at, what does my brain need so that the neural synaptic connections don't short circuit? How do you know those are short circuiting? You have brain fog. You can't remember things. It is very hard to focus. You're like, I feel like I have like ADD. I can't pay attention. I can't complete tasks. I'm agitated. I'm frustrated. So we use these adjectives that are what is the mood experience that's going on in our brain. But the mood experience goes back to, what are we nourishing our brain with so that we can create clear pathways? Because when the pathways of the brain are on point and clear, then we are increasing and improving the odds of our moods being better. Now, if you have a brain injury, this conversation is a completely different one, because you are repairing the damage by using these kinds of superfoods. But for the rest of us who have average functioning lifestyles, who haven't had a brain injury, we need to remember to not just nourish our gut for the size of our waistline, but we need to nourish our brain so that we are wiring and firing optimally, so that we can enjoy life. I mean, what's the purpose of all of this knowledge? It is so that who wants to go through life feeling like crap all the time? Who wants to go through life feeling all the low level vibrations of anger and shame and blame and rage and guilt and regret? Like, that's just a lousy way to live. And it is not how we were born into this lifetime to live. If you go back to when you were a baby, you're constantly looking for in the moment joy. You're not looking for misery, you're looking for joy. So what can we do as adults? Well, we can look back at what can we do to change that. And Lisa and Joanne are going to talk about the gut and ways that we can really become conscious about controlling the kinds of moods, because our moods are a result of our environment, our sleep, but also the nourishment that we put into our body. We are our own pharmacy, you guys. We can create all the beautiful joy and love and happiness and bliss and every other word you use to describe good moods within ourselves when we know what to do. And nourishment is such a key piece. And our brains, just so you know, I'll just finish with this. Our brains grow the most between 0 and 2 years old and all of the teen years. And I know for me, in the teen years, I did not eat very well. That was not a good nourishment. Like, I ate a lot of fats, but I wouldn't have called them healthy fats. And so I'm on repair mode now, where I am trying to rewire and refire my brain. And the cool thing about the body is that all the trillions of your cells are always, some are dying and some are growing and some are repairing all the time. So what you did in the past, it's like, let it go. It was what it was. Now that you know better, as Maya Angelou always says, you can do better. So really become conscious of, am I putting nourishment in my body on a daily basis that does actually nourish my brain? And you'll know you are, because your brain fog will reduce or remove itself. You will wake up with clarity. The moods you feel, you might dip for a reason, but then you return yourself to your natural, normal, static level, which is a higher level of joy and bliss, faster. You remember things, you can complete tasks. Those are all ways you know that you are nourishing your brain in a positive way. So the brain is actually directly connected to the gut. And so I'm going to pass it over to Lisa to talk a little bit about the impact of gut health, because that directly impacts neural health as well. Lisa?
Thanks, Lori. Gosh, it's such important information. Thank you. That was great. Thanks for sharing. Hi, I'm Lisa Masiag. Well, depending on who's coming on, I'm Lisa Masiag, a holistic nutritionist. And it's so true. I think this is my passion work, and how I personally got into the world of nutrition, like many, was through my own health challenges, and the gut was one of the biggest challenges. And most of the time, whenever I ever worked with people, is we always go in to reset the gut and repair the digestive system, because that's where it all begins. You know, if the body doesn't, if it's so inflamed, and that's usually what's happening, where our good bacteria, bad bacteria is so out of whack because of so many different aspects of living, and what we don't know, we don't know. So personally, you know, my diet just through those younger years wasn't as nourishing. So things got really upside down. And when I got to the point of being able to learn that by resetting the gut through seeing a practitioner and on my journey to learning about how to fuel myself well, and then my family, it was life-changing. So from the point of the happy hormones that we've been talking about, serotonin is the big hitter here. And it does, the serotonin does affect the brain as far as our well-being hormone. It produces that calmness, that happy feeling, and a lot of times it's interrupted and not being able to be produced as well We don't get the precursors to produce it. It's also produced in the gut, even though it is produced in the brain as well. Most of it is produced in the gut. So having a really optimally working digestive system is key. So foods that we had up on the screen there that support good brain health are very important. So you're wanting to get in good, to establish good gut flora, you're wanting to get in good prebiotics, which are all those great foods, fruits and vegetables, lots of dark leafy greens, legumes, nuts and seeds, all these beautiful prebiotics that the good flora needs to grow and feed and thrive. So if we're having our diet filled with, like many of us, well, I have to speak personally, with the processed foods or white flour, white sugar, those kind of things, the quick, easy fixes, and that's just the how the industry, the food industry, makes it so convenient and tempting with all the different chemicals and way too much sugar and additives and things that are actually addicting. And Joanne's going to be speaking about that. So it's it starts to really decrease the good gut flora in our digestive system. So when we start removing some of these inflammatory foods and really start helping to repair the walls of the digestive system, the little microvilli in our small intestinal system can be very damaged. And, we'll hear things like, colitis and Crohn's and all these digestive issues can really come and stem back from unhealthy digestive systems. So we really want to be bringing these good foods into our gut, but first we want to be resetting the gut. So it's eliminating some of these inflammatory foods, the ones that convert to high sugar as well, processed foods, and really start bringing in these great superfoods for the brain. So that the serotonin can start being produced, right? And making us feel better. Anyway, from there, some of the great things, and Joanne might go into speaking about, some of the systems that we use is being able to purify the body and be able to help eliminate these impurities, these inflammatory issues, and that's going into really doing some nice gentle cleansing or detoxing to be able to, again, start resetting things so that your digestive system now is working at a more optimal level and being able to receive all that good nutrition that can go through the gut lining into the cells, into the bloodstream, and be able to fuel all of our systems. So Joanne, maybe you're wanting to touch base on a little bit of the toxicity piece and the different chemicals and such that we're going to be discussing a little bit.
Thanks, Lisa. Yeah, I just noticed I was on mute there still as well. Like so many good points from everybody, and we'll get into sort of a bit more of a go around and discussion shortly too. But with regards to this, our very first call on hormones, and of course we could keep going on this topic forever because it is really an endless topic. We talked about the whole endocrine system and kind of went through it right from head to pelvis, starting, with the first, the brain, and then the throat chakra, the thyroid gland, the thymus gland, which is related to the heart energy center, and the pancreas and liver and digestive system, that's all related in the torso, and the ovaries and uterus, which and testes and in men. And we talked about how these main hormonal systems, because we're talking about it for men and women. Yes, men have hormones too. It is not just a women's thing, that all these glands are so involved in working in synchronicity and in synergy. And one interesting thing that goes along with the energy centers of each of these endocrine systems is the emotional component that goes along with all of these as well. And we've touched on those before. So of course it makes sense that, you know, when we're talking about foods that align with brain energy and our overall energy, that they also tie in with the whole endocrine system. Sorry, just waving goodbye to somebody there. The whole endocrine system to balance everything in terms of our moods. And in traditional Chinese medicine and in Ayurvedic medicine as well, you know, we have relationship with the liver and the emotion of anger. And we know that really powerful foods for the liver are, you know, beets and dandelion greens and, you know, dark green leafy vegetables and Jerusalem artichokes, you know, artichoke hearts. These are all excellent foods for the liver. And then a lot of times when we clean out and tend to our liver, we find that number one, these emotions like anger can actually surface because they're being kind of cleared out. And also we can find that we can resolve some of these components of why do we feel constantly angry all the time? Or with the gallbladder, it's related to frustration. And we know that the gallbladder responds really well to things like dandelion greens and milk thistle, which is an herb that's really potent for the gallbladder and the liver. So, and bitters, all kinds of foods that create a bitter taste, like, you know, the dandelion greens, but mustard greens and things like apple cider vinegar or lemon juice, you know, create that bitter kind of acrid taste. Well, those have a direct impact on the liver and the gallbladder. So we might find that those emotions of frustration or anger start to dissipate. They start to like disappear. And yes, we can do the emotional work as well. We can be delving into our emotional, you know, past and any of our childhood issues that have, you know, contributed to a lot of these emotional bases. But the foods are such an amazing component to that. So I often say to my clients, it doesn't always matter what you do, you know, whether you're addressing it physically or whether you're addressing it mentally or emotionally, start somewhere and they're all going to converge. They're all going to meet in the middle because it's a cyclical thing, right? It's a circular environment. Our body works as a synergistic, holistic organism. So with that component of it, it's really important to understand how some of these foods have a direct impact on our overall endocrine system. And then of course, how they match with our emotions as well. And, you know, it was, I remember when I first learned about this in my studies, how fascinated I was. And of course I jumped right into not giving my background at all, which I often do. I am a holistic nutritionist and an iridologist and have been practicing for 23 years. So yeah, you know, it's been an amazing journey of constant learning about how the body works. So I wanted to just touch on a couple of, you know, Jen made such a great point in talking about exercise and changing it up. And of course, with foods, it's super important. The chart that we showed earlier with the brain that Lori mentioned, you can see here, there's color, there's variety. We need that every single day. We talked about being in a rut, you know, in our thinking, but also in our food patterns, again, all very connected. And how we want to make sure, I was always taught there's 7 days of the week, 7 colors of the rainbow, eat that kind of variety of food. But as we age and our metabolisms change, and we are all on this lovely panel here, beautiful women, goddess women of a beautiful age, That's where I'm going to put it. And so metabolically, our bodies are changing all the time. And we do find that even as much as we all know how we safeguard our health and our digestion and everything that we do for our health on a regular basis, and I know we all do a lot on this group, you know, age happens. Aging happens. So we have to constantly be in tune with that. And I think that's really important. And how over time you might find that, oh, I don't quite do well with that anymore. What has worked for me in the past is not working for me right now. And what's working for you right now might not work for you in the future. So it's really important to just continually honor that and respect that your body is constantly changing. And we need to be the observer, I guess is the best way to put it, to always keep monitoring that. So a couple of books though that I just wanted to, because we could go so much deeper into these topics. This is an amazing book by Elizabeth Summer, who actually wrote a book called Food and Mood. And she gets into a lot of the concepts that we've already touched on, which is digestive health. Also, how I like to say one person's treasure is could be another person's poison, where certain foods at certain times, because of maybe our stuck in a rut eating, or over time, for whatever reason, our metabolism isn't just coping with certain foods, we will find that there are foods that will not necessarily jive with us. And we may need to eliminate those foods for a specific period of time. Now, I do hair analysis, which is part of epigenetic testing. And in that report, you get a list of 10 foods that right now, for the next 90 days, it's recommended that you avoid those foods. And it's really based on an energetic concept of your body not being able to metabolize those foods as efficiently. It's using too much of your body's energy to metabolize those foods at that time. Now, of course, we know if you have like what we call a type 1 hyperreactive food allergy, you're reacting very specifically to foods. And people will often know right away, I mean, that's a very strong physiological reaction to that food, and that you shouldn't be consuming it. But Jen touched on food intolerances, and those are something that they're not so obvious. They can show up as a headache. They can show up as foggy brain, mood issues, gut issues, skin issues. Those types of intolerances have a bit more of a sneaky way of showing up in your body. And I know she goes into food and mood intolerance related issues in that book. So that's something to really be aware of as well, is if you've got some underlying physical, mental, emotional kind of thing, don't discount it that it's just in your head. It really could be connected to a food that you're consuming that your body is just not really resonating with at that time. The other one I wanted to just point out is this one called Crazy Makers by Carol Simontachi. And she's a clinical nutritionist, and she practices in Oregon. And this book is really based on the food industry and how preservatives and artificial ingredients and artificial sweeteners and things are, so prevalent in our food supply. And we know this is a factor. And everybody else kind of touched on that as well, that, it's something that we really need to be mindful of, and why, all of us here are talking about constantly, getting the good, fresh, whole foods into our systems. But sometimes in order to propel that, I'm just going to wrap up with this comment, and then we'll kind of open it up to discussion for the last 10 minutes or so, is one of the ways that we all work with clients in order to help them kind of clear the tracks, so to speak, and do a reset. We like to call it a reset, because a lot of times, you try to improve your nutrition and things are just not happening. And that's a lot of times because your body can have a lot of pollutants in it. It can be a lot of metabolic toxins. It can be a lot of, which we call endogenous toxins. We can have a lot of outside toxicity affecting us. We can have, which we call exogenous toxins. And we can have our thoughts and emotions actually being toxic and creating a lot of metabolites that are acidic and not really great for our body. So one of the ways we reset our system is by doing a nutritional cleanse. And that is a supervised, supported system. We do this with clients for a minimum of 30 days and a lot of times beyond. And then you can get into a maintenance type of program that supports your body on an ongoing basis, because let's face it, life, health is a lifetime journey. It's not a quick fix. Especially as Lori alluded to, this is our body for this lifetime. So we want to look after it. So by doing this nutritional reset, we can help, as Lisa pointed out, reset the digestive tract. We can heal the digestive system. We can nourish the brain. We can do all these amazing things within one beautiful system. And it's supported with lots of clean eating, like you see on the screen here, of this beautiful variety of foods. So we invite you to join us on that journey. We have a new upcoming focus. It's going to be happening June 1st, where we're going to be doing a rev up for summer. And we really would love to have you participate with us. So make sure you get back to the person who invited you to this call and get the details on that. And now I just invite us to open it up and kind of wrap up with a few comments and a few anecdotal things. Because we love to just keep the discussions happening on these amazing topics. So fire away, ladies. Couple wrap up summary comments.
I can jump in and maybe we can go full screen. I always like when I can see everybody.
Yeah, let me just stop the screen share there.
One of the cool things to remember is that we have a reptilian brain that is in the back of our head. And when we're under stress and when our cortisol is too high, that one rules. And that one has only 3 things to do: fight, flight, or freeze. It's very limited. It's great when there's a bear attacking us, but in today's modern society, it sucks. And so what we want to do is move our thinking, our consciousness from the back of the brain in that constant state of survival to the front of the brain. And at the front of the brain, there is our consciousness, our pineal gland, which is our third eye. And our conscious brain is in the front of our head. And that's the one that gives us better clarity on our moods, on our feelings, and on our connection. And I truly believe that the way the world looks these days, our journey is from our heads, and for many people, the back of the head in that survival brain, down into the heart. Because when we are coming from the heart, we are focusing on taking care of ourselves, on nourishing our forever homes, on being consciously aware of what we are allowing into this body. So that includes our nourishment through our mouth. It includes what we allow our eyes to see, meaning, are you out in nature? What are you noticing? But also, what is the media you are consuming? And of course, your ears. Who are you listening to and why? And when we start to address all of that, very often the hormones start to reduce, because when we start to become aware that a huge amount of our external environment information is designed to put us into survival mode, not thriving, we start to understand that we can start as a very simple baseline with turning off the TV, going out in nature, and then really becoming conscious of choosing foods that will allow us to make that journey from the head to the heart. And I think, when we start to balance that out, the mood swings and the hormonal, emotional disruptions and eruptions start to settle themselves down, and we find ourselves in this more of a steady state where your baseline normal is in a bandwidth that, as Joanne was talking about, isn't focused on frustration, anger, and rage that's coming up from organs that are suffering and struggling from too much stress over time, but they end up coming from a place of health and vitality and joy and bliss, which, as our baby self when we first came in for this journey through life, was more along that line. And all the rest of it just happened over time. So
Awesome.
Giving ourselves that gift is just so priceless.
Yeah, So important, Lori. And just to go back to the point on the liver, we all know that, over this last 8 weeks, the liquor stores and the beer stores have all been open and lots of people have been indulging. So when we talk about sort of our rev up for summer, one of the things we're going to be, we're going to be talking about a lot of this within our support community. It's really important that kind of be called into check a little bit, because I think a lot of people have taken, the staycation as an opportunity to indulge a little bit more often in kind of the I just call them fun foods, because they're fine to have once in a while, but we just don't want to be consuming them all the time. But also, maybe too much of that, glass of wine, or, the after dinner liqueur or whatever. And, I really hear from a lot of people in Facebook groups and different things that they're starting to feel it. They're really starting to feel it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I can tag onto that as well, because I've had a number of clients, I can't see them face to face, but there's been a resurgence of, I'm putting on this weight because I'm not getting out. I'm not doing any exercise. I'm eating like I'm on this constant vacation. Mm-hmm. And it's not only putting the weight on, but I think it's our anxiety and our stress is through the roof. My piece, of course, is exercise. And it's been proven that exercise is the number one stress reducer. So, but don't be intimidated. You don't have to go out and do a heavy HIIT training or now that the weather's, much nicer. Honestly, there's nothing like a walk in nature. There's nothing like that, a gentle cycle, something that's just going to get you moving. It doesn't have to be intimidating. It should be something that you enjoy, or you won't continue to do it, but you'll get benefits from every little bit that you do. Yeah. And I think that's really, really important, because everybody's cortisol levels are far too high right now. Yeah. Far too high.
Awesome add-on, Jen. And actually, I had a question for you, because you mentioned the HIIT training to increase HDH, or doing something after the fasting cleanse day or your intermittent fast cleanse day. Is there a recommended time frame on that? Because we were talking earlier about how, especially as we age, you're not doing the workouts that you did in your 20s and 30s, and I think that's a really important piece for women, goddesses, men even, of beautiful ages, that we really need to dial in with that and appreciate, because I see a lot of women who are still really trying to do it like they did in their 20s and 30s, or trying to get back to doing it like they did in their 20s and 30s, or even 40s. And I'm like, girlfriend, you haven't hit the point yet. Like there's going to be that point, and you're going to hit it, and you're going to go, oh, like what? And it's like a little wake up call to go, and it's not even just the, I don't want to, or that I can't, it's that I don't want to. And Lori and I, we've talked about this a lot of times. It's you get to this little critical point where you go, like, I just don't want to do that anymore. And also it's the I don't have to. Like, we can appreciate that it's different.
Well, and I think we've all been at the gym where, I used to work at a gym, and I would see the same women on the same elliptical trainer or the same treadmill every single day. And honestly, 3 years later, their body hasn't changed at all. And and it's interesting. That was probably 10 years ago, at least 10 years ago. And so they were probably 20 years my senior at the time. So same thing. So the beauty of, the metabolism does slow down as we age, but there are things we can mitigate the damage. We can mitigate the changes that happens. And that one of the things is that intermittent fasting, which is huge, which is essentially what we're talking about with these beautiful cleanse days that we do. Right. So you're looking at like an 18-hour period where you're not consuming food.
But then that HIIT training, you said to do the next morning, is there a recommended time? That's effective. Like is it a 20-minute HIIT training, or a 30-minute, or a 10-minute?
I see what you're saying. I gotcha. Oh, okay. Yes, no more than 20 minutes. No more than 20 minutes, because really that's all you need. It's an anaerobic exercise, so something that doesn't require. It's not a test of the lungs or the heart. It's stuff that's going to get you breathing heavy quickly, but for a shorter period of time. And awesome. To do it in a fasted state, you're going to get the greatest bang for your buck.
I can do that. I could do that.
Yeah. And it's best in the morning because technically our cortisol should be highest in the morning and we should have a little more energy by the end of the day. And you don't want to be exercising right before you go to bed anyway, because I mean, you're wired. Like it's just not a good strategy. And it's even from a habitual standpoint, if you can get to the point where you're doing it, it's just easier because then you know the workout's done, you've done your exercise for the day, and you're not in your head the entire day going, okay, when am I going to fit it in? When am I going to fit it in? You know, and then feeling guilty. Oh, I didn't fit it in. So just get up when you're fresh, get it done. You've got your whole day ahead of you.
Yeah.
And,
awesome.
and it's the most effective. So
That's awesome. And it kind of in wrapping up here, because we're at 10 to the hour, I'm actually going to call on Cheryl and Lisa because we were talking earlier, and I can relate to this one as well. We're talking about sugar. Sometimes our old favorite friend. And, you know, I was talking about how, yeah, in my teens and 20s, and Lori, you were talking about, you know, how obviously optimal nutrition in our teens, and we know into our 20s, is really a critical time. And this is, you know, there's a concern too around a lot of kids who smoke pot and different things like that during those critical years when their brain development is still really formative. And I think for me, I didn't do that, but I sure did sugar. I did sugar in a big way. You know, I worked at a variety store through my high school years. And we basically, while we were working, we could have whatever we wanted. And gosh darn, it was always down that candy aisle, you know, or the ice cream at the back and the cooler. And, you know, like that was kind of the norm. And, you know, my eating habits, like my family, it was kind of, you know, very middle class. We had good basic food, but also like I was a picky eater, and a lot of things that I ate were probably not the best quality. And I certainly liked my sweets, and my mom was a great baker too. So that was another big piece. And I know Cheryl and Lisa, you were talking about sort of similar things. So just, if you want to jump in on that.
Yeah, no, I'm completely a sugar addict, still am. So that's why I enjoy the nutritional cleanse days that we do, because I do find that it does reset my palate and helps curb my cravings for those things. But yeah, I spent many years soothing my emotions by putting in sweets constantly. I would go to the store and buy a bag full at the dollar store of chocolate bars because they were $2 for $1. Like, what a great deal. And I would buy a bag of them thinking they would last me for several weeks. And because I was going through so much mental anguish and stress and anxiety in my role and in the company at the time where I was working corporately, I would start on one and one wasn't enough, and I'd start on two, and it was like I couldn't stop. It was like a drug addict. It was like a gambler. It was uncontrollable. And
well, sure, because you get that sugar high, and then as soon as it drops, your body kicks in and goes, oh, I need another sugar high. It's kind of the same cycle that we go through with caffeine and, you know, other kind of things.
I was actually quite ashamed, and I would hide it because I didn't want people to pass judgment, and I felt quite ashamed about what I was doing, but I felt totally out of control. And so I would hide in my office, and I'd put the bags in my drawer, and I'd sneak one out and eat it. And sometimes by the end of the day or the end of the next day, those 10 chocolate bars were gone.
Yeah.
And it was just a vicious cycle. I'd say I wouldn't buy them again, and I would try to convince myself that I could control myself. But
yeah.
I couldn't.
Well, there's an interesting emotional connection too with sugar, because it is something sweet and kind of tries to fill in that sweetness in our life that we're lacking, right? There's that whole connection with the pancreas, and in TCM, it is about, you know, sweetness in life or the lack of it, or the lack of joy. So yeah, very, very obvious connection there too, right? Lisa, I know you had some sort of similar stories from when you were prior to.
Yeah, well, I mean, very similar, you know, at certain time in my life where it was soothing those emotions with sweet. And yeah, I mean, I was driving at that point, you know, so I'd have my glove box or, you know, my bag, and they were always, you know, candy bars here and chocolates there. And that was just what I'd gravitate just to feel better and not the stress. And it was, you know, a cycle then. So from there, you know, knowing now what it created over time in my digestive system, such an imbalance over the years, you can really sort of start connecting the dots. And that's just one, you know, how food and fuel can really impact a person's well-being, how they're feeling. And of course, you know, the exercise piece is huge. You know, you put that together and, oh my gosh, you know, our body's such a miracle. If we just treat it right and do the things that we learn that, oh, maybe this would be something better. You know, we're at a place where we're not happy, and we learn something and try something new and healthier, you know, how wonderful, you know.
Totally.
I'd like to add something about the exercise too, because with a lot of people that I've coached, and even from my own personal experience when I was close to 300 pounds, the last thing I wanted to do was to go to a gym, because I was embarrassed. I was ashamed. And I thought people were going to look at me and pass judgment. And, you know, I had trouble to bend over and tie up shoes. I was out of breath going up the stairs. And so when I coach clients that I work with, I always say to them, what's so important is just to move. You don't have to go to a gym. You don't have to do these rigorous exercises, especially if you're a person that's been very sedentary for such a long period of time. Just move. Go for a walk. You know, if you love to dance, dance in your house. Nobody has to see you. Go in a room, turn up the music, turn up what you love. And actually, I post a lot of exercises to sort of keep myself accountable. And it's been very hard for me, but I've been trying to let myself even go, and I'm adding a little bit of dance because I love to dance. And when some of this old music that I listen to comes on, I just want to move. And so I hope just by adding those little tidbits that it just inspires other people to let themselves loose and let themselves go and just to move. And I remember being in a group once where the woman that was running that group, this was well before being involved with you ladies, but she used to say, find something you like or love doing because you'll keep doing it. Don't force yourself to do an exercise plan like yoga if you hate yoga. Don't force yourself to do that because you won't keep that out long term. So find something that you enjoy and you'll keep doing it.
So important. Yeah, so important. I think we all deliver that message to our clients a lot because I've had in my, in different routines that I've tried to work through with, different exercise regimes or whatever you want to call it, and burpees come up and I say, yeah, sorry, don't do them. Yeah, hate them, don't do them, will not do them, sorry. Give me something else, maybe I'll try that. But yeah, I mean, and I think that message is so powerful because we do all love to do certain things when we find our groove that lights us up. And so why the heck wouldn't we just keep doing that and find other ways to incorporate doing different things? Like, we know resistance training and we know certain things are really important, but we can incorporate that even when we go out for a walk. We can stand against a tree and do standing push-ups. Like, we can do that. So it's really about, and this is the kind of support we offer in our client group, Love Your Body. Of course, that's what we want to do, love our body. So we really invite you to join us for that. And definitely join us on our Rev Up for Summer. We really would love to see you there. And with that, I think we'll wrap it up for today, and we'll be here again next week. So please stay posted to all our Facebook pages or various Instagram accounts. This is live within our Love Your Body group, but we have the recording. Right now it's on my YouTube channel, which is Joanne Mulholland or Core Wellness Solutions. I never know, to be honest, because I'm not a techie. I never really know where it shows up. I actually sent the link to somebody today and said, why is it showing up like this? Because I don't really understand. But, if you want the link, we'll share it with you. And join us again next week, same time, same place. And we'll have another great topic for you next Thursday. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Have a wonderful week.
Enjoy the sunshine.
Yes, enjoy. All right, take care.
Take care.